So just in case you guys didn't know, PSN name change is coming out today. I don't know if anybody notified you. I don't know if there was any news or people mentioning it. Just wanted to let you guys know that PSN name change is out today. But on a real note, I'm sure all of you by now know the basics because we've been covering this topic for some time. So the simple basics, you can change your online ID for free for the first time. So the first time for everybody who's watching this video, it's not going to be an issue. It's free. It's $10 afterwards or $5 if you're a PlayStation Plus member. As for when it'll be out, it should be out by the time this video is out for you guys when you start watching it. For people in the West, I would believe this would be an update to the system simply because the UI will be changing to include the new ability of changing your PSN name. So I'd be on the lookout for a firmware update. I wonder if it'll be a 6.6 update or what it will be called, because currently right now it's 6.51. I'd be surprised if it was something like 6.52, but we'll see. So that'll be interesting. But moving on from this, let's just walk through the FAQs because it's pretty good and answers a lot of questions. I'll put my own input on these if necessary, and you can also comment below with your questions and I'll try to answer them the best I can. But diving into the FAQs, and I want to let you know, obviously this whole video is unscripted, so if I make mistakes here or there, bear with me. So going over the FAQs. So for the first question we have here, where and how can I change my online ID? This is something that I've kind of gone through before when we saw the first previews of the PlayStation name change feature. So you go to your settings, account management, account information, profile, and then online ID. Then you go through the process of changing your online ID. But the thing that's interesting here is that I don't know why they're asking you to go through settings, because you could literally just go through the profile in the main screen of your PS4, go to edit, and then go to the same screen as well. So you guys can choose which one you want to go with. I'll simply go with the profile on the main screen of your PS4 dashboard. And you can also change your PlayStation online ID with the web browser as well. So you sign into the PlayStation Network account, select your PSN profile, select edit, and then go through the process of changing your online ID. And moving on from that, can I change my online ID on my PS3 or PS Vita? No, the change can only be made through the PS4 or web browser. So on this matter, later on, it'll explain simply why it's not on PS3 or Vita, but my original thought was simply because they would have to release updates for both of these consoles to change their UI to allow the ability to change your online ID, but they kind of pretty much paint the picture later on, and we'll get to that. So do I have to pay to change my online ID? How much will it cost? We've kind of already gone through this. Will my friends be able to find me with my new online ID? We kind of already gone through this in the past as well. So when you change your online ID, you'll have the option to display your old ID next to your new ID. They give us a day now. I don't remember if they gave us a day before, but 30 days, people will see your old and new ID. And then after that, I would assume it would transition to just your new ID. How many times can I change my online ID? In general, there's no restrictions to the number of times you can change your online ID. Can I revert back to my old ID? I have a really questionable point on this, and we'll get into that in a sec. But reading the question, can I revert back to my old ID? You can, as long as the old ID doesn't violate the terms of service, obviously. You can revert back to any of your previous IDs by contacting PlayStation support. So we kind of knew this before, but let's get through the next couple of questions and I'll point out what I wanted to say. Do I have to pay to revert back to my old ID? No, reverting back is free. What happens to my old online ID? Can someone else take it? No, your online ID is only available to you. If I change my online ID multiple times, can I revert back to any of my past IDs? Yes, you can revert to any of your previous online IDs as long as those IDs do not violate the terms of service. How many times can I revert back to an old ID? In general, there are no restrictions to the number of times you can revert back to your old online ID. So this is something that's really interesting because essentially what they're saying, I thought that if I changed my online ID, Sony at one point would release the old IDs for other people to use. But this is essentially going to make it even harder to get a name that you want, because people could, at this point, from what I'm reading here, people control other people by simply taking their name, and if they have the money for it, obviously, just own a bunch of names in their line of names, simply. So if I had name A, I changed to name B, changed to name C, D, E, F, all the way through the alphabet, my account owns all of those IDs and nobody else can take them. I think that's kind of ridiculous because I could just, somebody else wants a name, whatever they want to name their name, Bob. They want the name Bob. And then after I go onto my system, I have the money for it. I could take the name Bob and then revert back to my old online ID, but Bob is now associated to my account. So the guy who wanted to change his name to Bob now can't because I own it. Essentially, my account owns it because from what I'm reading here, no matter how many times you change your online ID, you can revert back to your old ones. They never leave your account. They're never taken away. They're yours. And I think that's really flawed. And if you guys see it in another way, please correct me down in the comments. But this is what I'm currently seeing. And I think this is a flawed process. And Sony, if this is because your system, your new system works this way, that it doesn't allow you to release older names, then I hope you guys fix this before the next wave. I hope it's not something that you guys try to, I don't know, push back. I really hope you guys fix this before the next wave. But again, I could be wrong. But moving on from that, can any account change their online ID? Child accounts cannot change their online ID. This is not surprising. Do all games support online ID change? A large majority of the most played PS4 games that were tested support the feature. We recommend that you check the list of tested games before you make the actual change. PS3 and Vita games are not supported. So this is what I was saying earlier. Before, when we had the preview program, there was people who were testing the PS3 games as well as Vita games, I think some people. And I spoke to these people through Discord and we had conversations and they said most of their PS3 games worked fine. They didn't have any issues, but I think Sony's trying to, protect their own ass here simply and trying to tell you right off bat, Vita and PS3 games are not supported. And again, if this was the case, Sony, you guys could have released this feature earlier because I don't think you guys changed much from the beta program. You guys, I don't really know what changed because it kind of seems pretty similar. But moving on from that, what do you mean by a game supports the online ID change if it was originally published on or after April 1st? And as we know, games published after April 1st support the feature because of developer tools that were offered and people were able to implement these into their respective games, and that's why that's the case. But they make an interesting, clear point here. And this is in reference to, I guess, something like a remaster. So reading this, for example, a game that first launched back in 2013 that has since been remastered or resold as a complete edition in 2018 does not apply. So a perfect example of this is The Last of Us Remastered. This is a game I personally play online a crazy amount. I love the game, especially online. Even 6 years later, I still love the game. I personally don't want to change my online ID, so this doesn't bother me. But for somebody who did want to change their online ID, this game wouldn't support it, which is pretty crappy. Seeing where we're at right now with this, I honestly expected Sony to kind of perfect this feature, but they haven't. And it sounds like what it was in the beta. In some areas, it sounds worse. And I really think Sony should have kind of just made this a free option and not charged anyone, because this is clearly not up to par to other services that allow you to change your name. But that's my personal thought. Reading the next question, why is it that only games published after April 1st were developed to support the online ID change? We kind of already went over this. Will all games released in the future support the feature? This answer should have simply been yes. When I first read this should have just been yes, but this is what Sony states. All PS4 games originally published on or after April 1st have been developed to fully support the online ID change feature, but we do not guarantee that all games will fully support the feature. This is confusing for some people. People are going to think, are you referring to all games in general, or are you referring to not all games published after April 1st? Because in the beginning of the article, they also pointed out that they had some instances or an instance of a game that was published after April 1st, 2018 that didn't support the feature, and they recommend that you go and check their list. But this is too much work. This is too much work for people to do. This is not the name change feature that we wanted. And again, I expected something to be perfected. I expected this to be perfected by the time it released, considering this, from November or December? November, I think, when the beta finished. And now it's April? About 6 months later, 6 months later, and the feature is kind of pretty much the same. And in some parts it sounds worse. I'm surprised. I personally would not pay $10 to change my name because there seems to be too many areas where it still could have a problem. And that's surprising to me. But if you really want to change your name that badly, I guess go ahead. But moving on to the next question. I saw that there are a lot of potential issues and risks associated with changing my online ID. How do I know that I won't run into these issues? Again, we recommend that you check this list of tested games before you make the actual change. A large majority of the most played PS4 games that we tested support the feature, and we expect the major issues to only occur in a small number of games. So the major games they're talking about obviously is the Battlefields, the Call of Duties, maybe even the Star Wars Battlefronts. Something along those lines is what they're probably mentioning here. But I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that play some games that released way before April 1st, 2018 and want to change their name, but there's simply no reason because those games won't be supported. And I don't know, it just bugs me that there's issues. It just bugs me that there is still issues with this feature. After all this time, I would think that they kind of would have perfected it, but maybe that was wishful thinking. Reading the next question, what kind of issues could I potentially run into? And this is the stuff that we saw in the beta. They kind of put it in the warning screen before the actual screen to change your name. And we kind of went through them. Your previous online ID may remain visible. You may lose progress within games, including game save data, leaderboard, and progress towards trophies. Parts of your game and applications may not function properly, both online and offline. You may lose access to content, including paid content. This is still crazy. This is the public release that you may have acquired for your games, including content like add-ons and virtual currency. So, I don't know. I really don't think this should even be a case. We shouldn't have an FAQ this long to change your name. People don't really want to go through this. People don't want to worry about these issues. They just want to change their name. To them, and I've covered this long enough to tell you, and if anybody at Sony is watching this, to people, they see this as the most simple feature in the world. I just want to change my name. I know that in the background, this is tougher for me personally. I know this. But for people, the general audience, don't know this and they don't want to look at an FAQ. Some people will actually just change their name and just not care and maybe run into an issue later. And your support system, your support callers, or your support team might be bombarded with people having issues. That's just the heads up from my personal point of view. And the final question, what should I do if I encounter an issue changing my online ID? If you experience any issues while playing a game that is not on the list of tested games, we recommend that you revert back to your previous online ID. They also said this when the beta went live, that did not have those issues. Reverting back should resolve most issues. Again, this was something that we've heard before. But that's simply it. This FAQ kind of sounds similar to the beta. I do not know what Sony did since the beta. Maybe they just tested more games, which is cool, I guess, more data for them. But for anybody who really cares about this, and I would really check the list of games that they have supported. And if all of your games that you care about is in that list, go change your name. Otherwise, if maybe even one game that you really care about is not on this list, I personally don't think it's worth it. And at one point, just wait till you get bored with some of these games and maybe change your online ID then. But this shouldn't even be an option that I'm giving you. This feature should have been perfected, in my personal opinion, just simply because it costs money. It's not free. If it was free, I would give Sony the benefit of the doubt. But it's not free. First time is free. Afterwards, it costs money. How are you asking people to pay money for a feature that could still be defective? I don't know. Maybe some of you don't really care. You have some games that you care about and they're supported and that's all that matters to you. And of course, go ahead, change your name. I'm happy for you guys. I'm happy this feature is finally out because I know a lot of people wanted it and a lot of people don't care about the majority of games that are out there. They have a specific set of games. So for you guys, I'm happy for you. Congratulations. The feature is finally out. And that's literally it. So that's it for the video. If you guys did enjoy this video, please hit that like button. It really supports the page and I really appreciate it. And subscribe if you're new. I got new videos every other day except days there's something really interesting like today. And I'll just post a video on that day. I'll check you guys out on the next one. And welcome back to the after show. This is the part of the video where we have a little fun down in the comments below. If you're old, welcome back. If you're new, welcome. And by the way, if you've stuck through that whole video and are actually watching this after show, I love you beyond the skies, beyond the stars. You don't understand. It's a lot of love is what I'm trying to say. But for today's thing, what I want you guys to do is to body obliterate and destroy the comment section with finally Sony, because obviously finally Sony, the feature is out. Even though it's not perfect, finally it's out. So destroy the comment section with finally Sony, and I'll definitely heart those comments like I always do, because I appreciate everybody who stays to the end of my videos. And now I'll check you guys out on the next one.